The film cost $100 million to make. The Wolf of Wall Street, Martin Scorsese, Leonardo DiCaprio, a 3-hour celebration of greed, excess, and the specific American fantasy of infinite money obtained through infinite fraud, released December 2013, nominated for 5 Academy Awards, praised as one of Scorsese's masterworks. It was financed in significant part with stolen Malaysian government money. Not investor money, not box office projections. Funds misappropriated from One Malaysia Development Berhad, the Malaysian State Sovereign Wealth Fund created in 2009 to finance development projects for the people of Malaysia, that had been stolen by a network of financial criminals including a Goldman Sachs managing director, his boss at Goldman Southeast Asia operation, and a Malaysian financier named Jho Low, who understood how to use Wall Street's prestige and Goldman Sachs's bond underwriting capability to steal approximately $4.5 billion from a government fund. $4.5 billion from a fund created to improve the lives of Malaysian citizens, spent on parties, yachts, real estate, paintings by Basquiat and Monet, and the production of a film about the crimes of Wall Street greed. While the crimes of Wall Street greed were happening, Goldman Sachs helped 1MDB raise $6.5 billion in bond transactions in 2012 and 2013. Goldman received approximately $600 million in fees for that work. The people running the bond transactions for Goldman, Tim Leissner, the bank's Southeast Asia chairman, and Roger Ng, his managing director, received personal kickbacks of $35 million for their role in making the transactions happen while keeping the bribery and embezzlement from Goldman's own internal review processes. On March 9, 2023, Roger Ng, 50 years old, Malaysian national, sitting in a Brooklyn federal courthouse in a suit that he would exchange for a prison uniform, was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison by U.S. District Judge Margot Brody, the most senior Goldman Sachs employee to be convicted after a full trial in the largest corporate corruption case in the history of the American financial system. There is a significant price to pay for corporate corruption, U.S. Attorney Brian Peace said in a statement. The price Goldman Sachs paid, $2.9 billion in a coordinated global resolution with criminal and civil authorities in the United States, the United Kingdom, Singapore, and beyond. Its Malaysian subsidiary pleaded guilty to a corruption charge. The bank itself entered a deferred prosecution agreement acknowledging that it conspired to violate the anti-bribery provisions of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. $2.9 billion, and Roger Ng received 10 years. Let's go back to 2009 and build the full architecture of what the largest financial fraud in Malaysian history and one of the most consequential corporate corruption cases in American legal history actually looks like from the inside. And 1MDB was founded with a stated purpose: to invest Malaysia's sovereign wealth for the benefit of its people. Infrastructure, economic development, the kind of long-term investment that sovereign wealth funds in Norway, Singapore, and the Gulf states have used to convert resource wealth into generational financial stability. Prime Minister Najib Razak announced it, backed it, and, as the American prosecution and subsequent Malaysian conviction established, used it as a personal and political slush fund. The mechanism required an investment bank, specifically a bank whose reputation and capabilities would allow 1MDB to raise billions of dollars from international investors who would not ask the questions that a less prestigious underwriter might have prompted. Goldman Sachs was that bank. Jho Low, a Malaysian financier in his early 20s with social connections to royalty and government officials across Southeast Asia and the Gulf, had positioned himself as the indispensable middleman. Low understood that the people in the Malaysian government who controlled 1MDB needed money outside official channels, and that international investors needed the comfort of a Goldman Sachs imprimatur before they would deploy billions into a developing country's sovereign fund. He provided the connection. Goldman provided the credibility. The people at Goldman who managed the relationships, Leissner and Ng, provided the specific institutional access and internal compliance workarounds that allowed 3 bond transactions to be structured, approved, and executed while concealing the payments that Leistner and Ng were receiving from Low's network. The bribes went to 12 government officials in Malaysia and the United Arab Emirates, specifically Abu Dhabi. The officials had control over approvals, investment decisions, and the flow of government money that 1MDB needed to execute the transactions. The payments ensured cooperation, the transactions closed. Goldman collected $600 million in fees, an extraordinary amount for similar work at other banks, but reasonable given what Goldman was actually providing. Not just bond underwriting, but the institutional cover for a theft operation. What's your read? When Goldman Sachs received $600 million in fees from bond transactions that were simultaneously being used to launder billions of dollars in government theft, and the people managing those transactions were personally receiving $35 million in kickbacks while circumventing Goldman's own compliance systems, is this a case of two rogue employees or something that reflects institutional failures that the $2.9 billion settlement price doesn't fully address? Type A if two rogue employees adequately describes it. Type B if the systemic failures were broader than two individuals. Drop it in the comments. The $4.5 billion that was embezzled from 1MDB moved through a specific financial geography. Some went directly to Najib Razak's personal bank accounts, the Malaysian Prime Minister receiving hundreds of millions from a fund he was supposed to be overseeing. Some went to Low, who used it to fund the specific lifestyle that made the Wolf of Wall Street financial backer such a remarkable institutional irony. Some went to parties, the specific parties that Jho Low threw in Las Vegas, New York, and Hollywood. Events that cost millions of dollars per evening, that featured celebrity guests and private performances, and the specific conspicuous consumption that signals, in the currency of global financial crime, that the money is real and the power behind it is genuine. And some went to finance a film that depicted, with Scorsese's specific artistic genius, exactly the psychology that had produced the looting of 1MDB. Jordan Belfort was not Jho Low, but the mechanism, the excitement of money, the performance of wealth, the use of institutional credibility to extract what the institution did not willingly give, was not so different. Subscribe and hit the notification bell, because the specific co-conspirators whose cases remain unresolved, and why the Malaysian financier, who the prosecution called the principal architect of the scheme, is still a fugitive while everyone else has been convicted or has pleaded guilty, is the specific zagadka at the center of the largest financial fraud in Malaysian history. Jho Low, 43 years old, his last confirmed location, Macau and various parts of Asia, according to public reporting, indicted in the United States in 2018 on the wanted lists of the United States, Singapore, Malaysia, and multiple other jurisdictions. A fugitive from the most consequential financial corruption prosecution of the 21st century. Low was, by the prosecution's characterization and by the evidence presented at Ng's trial, the central figure in the scheme. He used his relationships with Malaysian royalty and government officials to create the opportunity. He used Goldman Sachs to execute it. He used Leistner and NGE to corrupt the institutional process that was supposed to prevent exactly what he was doing. He collected approximately $1 billion of the stolen funds. He is free. Leistner pleaded guilty in 2018. He agreed to forfeit $43.7 million and cooperate. He testified against Ng at the trial that produced Ng's conviction. He is awaiting sentencing, a process that has lasted years because the government's cooperation assessment has not concluded. Ng was convicted. His defense, that he was a fall guy, that Leistner and Low had done the criminal acts and he was being prosecuted to protect more senior figures. The jury rejected this. The evidence presented over 9 weeks established Ng's specific role in the scheme, his $35 million in personal kickbacks, and his specific acts of concealment, including deleting the contents of 4 email accounts when the scheme began to unravel in public. 4 email accounts deleted. When news about 1MDB started to become public, Ng deleted 4 email accounts that had been used in the scheme. He also lied to law enforcement authorities in Malaysia and Singapore who were investigating. Both the deletions and the lies were presented to the jury as consciousness of guilt. You've seen the full picture. 6.5 B in Goldman bond deals, 4.5 B stolen from 1MDB, 1B plus in bribes to 12 officials in Malaysia and UAE, 600 million in Goldman fees, 35 million in on kickbacks, Wolf of Wall Street financing, Malaysian PM Najib convicted and sentenced to 12 years, Goldman 2.9B global settlement, Leisner awaiting sentencing, Inang sentenced 10 years, Jho Low still a fugitive. What single detail defines the scale of what $6.5 billion in bond deals actually produced? Comment below. The $2.9 billion that Goldman Sachs paid represents the largest fine in American history for violations of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, a resolution that covered not just the American criminal exposure, but coordinated settlements in the UK, Singapore, and globally. The specific breakdown of the American portion, $2.3 billion criminal penalty paid by Goldman Sachs' parent company, plus guilty plea by GS Malaysia, plus deferred prosecution agreement. $2.9 billion. Goldman Sachs' revenue in the quarter it paid was approximately $17 billion. The fine was large enough to be notable, not large enough to threaten the institution. The Malaysian government separately reached a $3.9 billion settlement with Goldman Sachs for the money 1MDB lost. Both together, $6.8 billion paid by Goldman to address a fraud that produced approximately $4.5 billion in stolen funds. The bank that collected $600 million in fees for facilitating the theft paid $6.8 billion to resolve the legal consequences of that facilitation. Whether the $6.8 billion reflects adequate accountability for an institution whose prestige and capabilities were the specific feature that allowed the theft to succeed at scale, whether Goldman's compliance failures were adequately addressed by the fine or require something more, is the question that the Senate's 2020 hearings on Goldman's conduct raised without fully answering. Was this justice? 10 years for Roger Ng, $2.9 billion for Goldman Sachs, 12 years for Malaysian PM Najib in a Malaysian court, and Jho Low still at large, as the accounting for the largest sovereign wealth fund theft in history? Or does the principal architect's continued freedom define a gap in accountability that every conviction and every settlement leaves open? Drop your verdict in the comments. One detail, the one the sentencing record contains without dramatic emphasis. The 4 email accounts Roger Ng deleted when news about 1MDB became public were used in furtherance of crimes. The deletion was deliberate. The crimes they documented were real, but the deletion was insufficient. Federal investigators working with Malaysian, Singaporean, American, and other international authorities reconstructed the email records through platform archives, partner jurisdiction cooperation, and the forensic methods that reveal what was deleted without eliminating what was transmitted. 4 email accounts deleted, cases in multiple countries built, the principal figure still a fugitive. The zagadka of this case is not what happened to Goldman Sachs or to Roger Ng, or to Tim Leisner, or to Najib Razak. The law reached all of them in one form or another. The zagadka is Jho Low, the man who built the scheme, connected the parties, collected approximately $1 billion, and in 2025 remains free, while the 9 weeks of trial that convicted Ng, the Malaysian court that convicted Najib, and the $2.9 billion global settlement all exist in a public record that cannot reach the place where Low currently is. 4 email accounts, deleted. The evidence survived the deletion. The principal architect survived the evidence. What stays with you? The Wolf of Wall Street financed with stolen Malaysian government money? The $600 million Goldman received for helping steal 4.5B? The 4 email accounts Ng deleted when the scheme unraveled? Or Jho Low, the architect, the fugitive, the man the entire prosecution centered on who is not in any courtroom? Let's discuss it below. One more number, the one the EDNI sentencing record contains that frames the full personal dimensions of this case. $35 million, Roger Ng's personal cut from the scheme that processed $4.5 billion in stolen funds. The specific kickback amount that the prosecution established he received through the specific mechanism he designed. A shell company in his mother-in-law's name, multiple bank accounts in the names of family members, a layered financial structure specifically designed to conceal that the money was coming from a bribery and embezzlement scheme. He put the money in his mother-in-law's name. He used family members' bank accounts. He built the concealment structure with the people closest to him, not corporate intermediaries, not anonymous shell companies, but family relationships converted into financial opacity. 35 million through his mother-in-law's company for his role in the largest sovereign wealth fund theft in history. The Goldman Sachs managing director who sat in a Brooklyn courtroom in March 2023 and received 10 years was not a peripheral figure who had looked away from a scheme he didn't fully understand. He was the person who structured the mechanism that made $35 million of the proceeds available to himself through his own family's financial accounts. The jury heard 9 weeks of this. The verdict took the time it took. The sentence was 10 years. And the principal architect who designed the need for that structure, who connected Low to Goldman, connected Goldman to the Malaysian government, connected the Malaysian government to the bond proceeds that were then stolen, is in a location that the 10-year sentence cannot reach. $35 million for the managing director, approximately $1 billion for the architect. The accounting between those two figures is the specific injustice that the available public record identifies and the available law enforcement tools have not yet resolved. What stays with you about this case? Share it below. The notification bell is the only way to be there when the next development drops.